Tommy Boyds joined us. Tommy, good morning.
Good show this morning. Had Derek McGovern on the show yesterday talking about Premiership bets with the season starting Saturday there. He said it was Chelsea. Haven't heard your bet, not your tip, your bet.
My bet.
If you were to bet.
Value for money, Tommy. I think the way Chelsea played on Saturday, I think that in the Charity Shield, or Sunday was it, I think they'll be United's biggest challenger. And yet this morning we're here, there's all sorts of problems. LaBeouf has said Vialli's hopeless.
How about
Zola is disappointed. They're pushing him out. So suddenly you think, thank God I didn't have a bet.
Yeah, okay. And quickly, nationwide?
Nationwide, very difficult. I think it would come. Yeah, I think Fulham or Blackburn have a big chance. I think I admire Souness, and they tell me Tigana has got the money and the expertise. Maybe one of them too.
We'll be talking about betting on the show because the news has come that one of the big bookmakers are now offering you odds on whether you think one of the characters in that TV programme that I haven't watched yet, but apparently everybody has, Big Brother, is a plant, and that the show, you can actually take odds on the show being a fake. Somebody sat down and written it. We'll be finding out a little bit about that on the show.
Is Vanessa in it yet?
Quite. It's all over the place, you know. Our shows aren't faked, are they?
Absolutely not.
Anyway, bottom of page 27, Tommy continues. We'll also be talking about cloning and also the lottery, because Britain's top philosopher has come down on it like a ton of bricks, saying that it's for losers, and the losers are the country, and the losers are the winners, and the losers are the organisations that get the dough.
How can it be losers when all that money goes to good causes?
I'll ask him.
Yeah,
don't you worry. Write some more questions down for me, quick. Come on, you haven't finished yet. No. But we'll take the news and sport. You're tuned to TalkSport. On 1089 and 10:53 a.m. Tommy Boyd on TalkSport. Good morning and welcome. I'm Tommy Boyd, in for Mike Dickin, who's on his holiday. You're tuned to TalkSport. This show, between now and 12 o'clock, will keep you up to date with what's happening in the world and give you an opportunity to throw in your two penn'orth on those events. Later today, we will be asking you whether you can help with the rumour that one of the characters in that Big Brother programme on Channel 4, which has taken the summer schedules by storm, is in fact a plant, and he's working for them to make the programme as interesting as possible. Make a note of the number. It's 08700 40 50 60. Later on, we'll also be talking to Britain's best-known philosopher about the lottery. He says the time has come to can it. We know that you want us to keep watching for you the events as they unfold down at the bottom of the Barents Sea, and we'll be talking to one of Britain's leading experts on submarine technology a little later. But we begin, of course, with the revelations about Concorde, which were published some 25 minutes ago. And we'll be talking to Paul Beaver, our expert on the subject, in just a moment. And the question has to be this: how can the Concorde go from being, for the last 30 years, correct me if I'm wrong, the safest aircraft flying, to the unsafest aircraft flying in one tyre burst? On TalkSport.
That was beautiful.
News was... I'm Tommy Boyd, in for Mike Dickin. You're tuned to TalkSport. The news was released about half an hour ago as follows. They've now officially grounded Concorde after investigators said at 9:30 this morning that a single tyre burst was the first significant event, I'm quoting that bit, first significant event in the crash of the Air France supersonic jet in Paris last month. Britain's Civil Aviation Authority formally suspended the plane's certificate of airworthiness following a recommendation by the Anglo-French investigation team. Here to unravel this, at very short notice, I grant, is Paul Beaver, spokesman for Jane's Defence Information Service. Morning, Paul. Oh, sounds like we've got a slight technical. But it sounds as though Paul's got us on call waiting. I'm informed by people who understand telephone technology as well as radio.
Cool there. I'll take it on mine too.
Well, we'll go to our switchboard and come back to Paul in just a second. John's in Bellingham. John, welcome to TalkSport.
Yeah, good morning, Tommy. Yes, it was this, regarding Concorde, this unique event which obviously disclosed, revealed the vulnerability of the Concorde design, that presumably all the controls were in that part of the aircraft, and when the tyre went, whatever it was that came up and destroyed the fuselage, destroyed the control mechanisms as well, and that's why it's been the airworthiness certificate has been withdrawn. Obviously, that particular scenario wasn't thought of before.
John, thank you for your call. We've got Paul. Morning, Paul.
You have indeed got Paul Beaver. Hello,
Hi,
good morning.
Paul.
I'm sorry, the digital technology isn't perfect.
No. Well, technology always throws a few spanners in the works, doesn't it, one way or another?
I think Concorde and the Russian submarine are both proving that today.
Okay. Well, Paul, just let me reprise, because you may not have been listening. You have obviously heard the news that at 9:30 this morning it was announced that a tyre burst was the first significant event in the crash.
Yes.
First of all, I am struck by the careful wording of this announcement. A single tyre burst was the first significant event. If there had been debris on the runway, they would not have said that it was the first significant event. They would have watered down the phrase first significant event. So we can presume, can we, that the tyre burst of its own accord?
No, I don't think we can. I smell politics in these decisions, very much so. During the time that immediately before Concorde had its accident in Paris, the authorities at Charles de Gaulle Airport, Aéroport de Paris, were actually working on refurbishing the runways, including runway 261, which I believe Concorde took off from. So there's still a strong feeling that it may well have been debris on the runway which caused the problem. And the tyre burst. Now, a tyre going across some debris should not burst. So I can understand the way in which this has been phased. These tyres are at a slightly higher pressure from what I understand in a 747 or an Airbus. So it may well be that's the reason for the problem. But it does seem interesting because the French Concordes and the British Concordes have different sizes of tyre. They have different types of tyre. French ones are made by Goodyear, and Dunlop make the British ones. And there have been lots of modifications done to the British Concordes as a result of a tyre burst back in the 80s, I think it was, or maybe in the late 70s, at Washington. So they're not quite the same aircraft. So it is interesting. I think there's a bit of solidarity here between Britain and France over Concorde.
How different are the two sets of tyres?
Well, it's rather like if you in your car, you can get Pirelli or Dunlop or whoever to put the tyres on your car. Each manufacturer, Ford, Volvo, Saab, whoever it is, specify a size of tyre, and then you decide which ones you're going to have on. Normally the manufacturer supplies you with one type. I mean, I have a new Volvo, and it's got a new Continental tyre on there, but I could have had a Pirelli tyre or a Michelin tyre on the car. It's the same thing with aircraft. The manufacturer says you need a tyre to this specification. It's up to you as to how you go about which one you put on, and then you have to check that out with your airworthiness organisation.
Are there precedents for a tyre burst causing a major catastrophe on other makes of aircraft? I can't remember one.
No, I can't either. I've been racking my brains for this over the last few minutes, trying to work out exactly what the problem would have been with this that caused it. I think it's the position of the tyre, and it's the fact that the engines, of course, the scoops are very close to the undercarriage. Now it's quite normal in military aircraft, but it's unusual in airliners. It still shouldn't be significant. There shouldn't be the capability of the tyre to cause the accident. I can understand the way the BEA in France have cottoned onto this, because it does seem there's a chunk of the tyre, perhaps it was wheel, perhaps it was something else, was flicked back up onto the fuel tank or to the engine and caused the problem. Interesting that should cause the problem there.
Right. And one thing you may not have heard me speculating on because of your technical is that Concorde appears to have gone from being the world's safest aircraft, which it was often paraded as, to being the world's unsafest aircraft,
well,
apparently in a tyre burst.
I think, yeah, it sounds to me a bit like it sounds to me a bit sort of superficial to say that. Concorde has flown 72,000 hours in service. Now, the law of averages says that that one person will die for every 1,000,000 hours an aircraft flies. So Concorde's sort of beating the law of averages here. It was the safest aircraft in the world until the crash. It's still a very safe aircraft. The fact that it's been temporarily grounded, that has happened to other aircraft in the past. The Douglas DC-10, for example, after the catastrophic accident with the Turkish Airlines aircraft out of Paris, 20 years ago now, discovered that one of the freight doors in the back of the aircraft didn't sufficiently locks on it. Now, that was a small lock. It's a bit like the tyre. The tyre must be one of the cheapest things on Concorde. This lock was the same on the DC-10. They grounded the aircraft until new locks were fitted to all the aircraft. And they grounded everyone's aircraft just as they have with Concorde. And then suddenly the DC-10 was the most dangerous aircraft in the world, having been an aircraft with no accidents before it. So, yes, I think that if we want to, we can get Concorde back in the air. It will depend on the commercial pressures and the political will.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you next, so thank you. So it could be a matter of months, but it will be back in the air.
I sincerely hope so. I'm a great Concorde fan. I still think it's a wonderful piece of technology, and it should still fly.
All right. Can I ask you for your very latest on events at the bottom of the Barents Sea, the expiry date for the survival mechanisms that they have often been quoted as 5 o'clock this afternoon. Is there anything new on that?
Well, I think 5 o'clock this afternoon is a bit arbitrary. We don't really know how much time they have got left. It's a difficult situation. We don't know what the true damage is. And I was talking to a former commander of an Oscar II class submarine yesterday, and he reckoned that in the forward part of the submarines where most of the men would have been, that's the area that's been most badly damaged. So it could well be that there are already casualties on board, and it's just the people in the rear engineering plants, the nuclear reactor compartments, etc., who are still alive. It could well be that there's nobody, the captain may well be dead, the senior officers may well be dead, we don't know. But there's still going to be sufficient air, there should be sufficient air, to last another 3 or 4 days on this. But the problem is we just don't have enough information. The Russians, A, aren't providing it, and B, I don't think they know themselves.
Paul Beaver for Jane's Defence Information Service, thank you very much indeed for talking. And later on the show, we'll be talking to Commander Jeff Tall, who is former commander of the nuclear-powered submarines Churchill and Repulse, and is currently the director of the Royal Navy Submarine Museum in Gosport, on events in the Barents Sea, which we are watching all the while, and we'll bring you any developments on. But for the while, we will stay with the news about Concorde, which is that the French investigators have now said that a tyre burst was the first significant event in that catastrophe. In a moment, we'll be talking to Vincent Cable, who is MP for Twickenham, which of course is on the Concorde flight path. He also happens to be the Lib Dem trade and industry spokesman. If you want to talk to him, you'll have to be quick, but you can. 08700 40 50 60. If you want to comment or offer your thoughts, original or otherwise, on the Concorde story, again, 08700 40 50 60, or you can email us through our website, which is talksport.net, and click on the button that says email the show. Now let's get the latest on the travel for it with Karen Mercer.
On 1089 and 10:53 a.m. TalkSport.
Let's talk to Vincent Cable, MP for Twickenham, which of course is on the flight path, not just Concorde's flight path, but I would imagine a plane every something like 90 seconds. Good morning, Vincent.
Good morning to you.
Can I ask whether you have had any correspondence or doorstepping from any of your constituents on the Concorde thing?
Well, indeed, a fair amount of correspondence, and I've talked to quite a lot of people on the doorstep about it. I mean, the reason I became embroiled in the controversy originally, and indeed suggested that the plane should be grounded as it was in France when the accident occurred, was because we are under the flight path. There are hundreds of thousands of people in southwest London who do have some anxiety. It's their safety as well as the passengers which are at stake here.
Yeah. Presumably, most of the issues that are raised about the location of your constituents in relation to Heathrow Airport, just about the nuisance factor of aircraft, correct?
Well, overwhelmingly that is the case. There is an issue of noise. There is a safety issue as well. We have frequent reports of little bits of aircraft and spanners and ice balls and even a body on one occasion falling onto the population. I mean, I don't for 1 minute pretend that there is a serious risk of Concorde or any other flight crashing, but if it did, it would be catastrophic, and that's one reason why we have to be even more careful around Heathrow than we do around Charles de Gaulle or John F. Kennedy Airport, which are not in populated areas in the same way.
Okay, we're taking a lot of calls from listeners to the show, Vincent. Maybe I can pair you with one now. Who's,
sure.
I'll actually just paraphrase what people are saying, which is that it is most likely that the information which will be released, not just to the public, but also perhaps to some of those who need to know more in relation to this catastrophe, will be politically manipulated. And that is to say that it will be important, people here think, to the French, that both their aircraft and their airport and the operators of that airport don't come under too close a scrutiny. Can I ask for your reaction? You're a politician. Can I ask for your reaction to that?
Well, I obviously want as much transparency as possible and as much information as possible. But what's intriguing about this, in a way that the French, who you might think have much more interest in prestige and keeping the aircraft flying, were ultra cautious. They were the people who ordered that Concorde should be grounded from day one. And it's the British who sort of lagged behind and had to do this rather embarrassing U-turn. So there may be political manipulation, but certainly in France, the political manipulation was in the direction of ultra caution and safety.
Where does a politician's jurisdiction begin and end in such a case as this? John Prescott was being chased yesterday on whether or not he ought to have intervened and perhaps persuaded British Airways to ground their Concorde earlier, or whether he, in fact, could have done it unilaterally.
Well, I argued that 3 weeks ago that British ministers should have taken a lead on this matter. Now, their argument is that in Britain, air safety regulation is a matter for the experts. There's an independent regulator, the Civil Aviation Authority, and it should be last to them. They're the boffins. They know the facts, and we shouldn't have political interference. I think there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, the British way of doing things has got something to commend it. But when you have something like this, where you have a highly prestigious plane, which is the flagship of the national fleet, where you have a major public concern about safety, I think in the final analysis it does come down to ministerial responsibility, and I think British ministers might well have taken a lead as their French counterparts did.
It was interesting as well that the Americans, who have chosen not to follow the route of supersonic commercial flight, didn't intervene at their end.
Well, indeed. I mean, I think we're dealing with a fine margin here. The safety risk is probably very, very low, but we do need to be absolutely sure about this. I think in the case of the American authorities, they've almost certainly taken their lead from Europe. I mean, the accident investigation is taking place here, not in the United States. And now that the accident investigators have come out with a very clear recommendation that the flight should be grounded, all major airports, of course, will have to follow suit.
Vincent Cable, MP for Twickenham, thank you very much indeed for joining TalkSport this morning. I'm Tommy Boyd, in for Mike Dickin, 08700 40 50 60.
On TalkSport. What?
08700 40 50 60, staying with the news, which was broadcast just an hour ago at 9:30, that the first significant event in the Concorde tragedy 3 weeks ago was the single tyre burst, which was one of the first things to be speculated, along with the possibility that the replacement of a crucial engine part hadn't been successfully completed before the pilot insisted that the plane was too overdue for any more work to continue, and the possibility that a refuelling pipe had been left unconnected. 08700 40 50 60. You can email the show by going to our website, which is talksport.net. Later on in the programme, your thoughts on the lottery, as we talk to Britain's leading philosopher, who says the time has come to scrap the whole thing. And we'll also be finding out the very latest about the crippled Russian submarine. We'll be talking to the director of the Royal Navy Submarine Museum in Gosport. 08700 40 50 60. Pauline is on the line from Caterham. Pauline, welcome to TalkSport.
Good morning, Mr. Boyd. Well, I was listening to the politician speak, and I have to say that every aircraft that goes over Heathrow is a potential danger to everybody, not just Concorde. So then are you going to ground every aircraft in the that lands at Heathrow? That's all I can say. That's the only way to be super safe. Quite frankly, it was a French accident. I do not understand why we have to ground Concorde. It could. I'd read somewhere that there was something on the runway that punctured the tyre in the first place. So it could have been so many. I'm sorry, I'm very cynical about this, but I do think it's a political thing, and I think it's a case of if our aircraft can't fly, neither can yours.
Yeah, because one of the other possibilities, and I think this one is very pertinent in this case, is that they might actually never find out for certain what went wrong.
Exactly.
In which case, will it fly again or not? Yes, of course it will.
Well, I think so.
And would you fly on it?
I have. I've been on it. I've been on Concorde.
And you go on it again. Why did you go on it? Why did you go on it?
I went on it. Well, actually, it was a present. I had a present.
Oh, so you didn't go anywhere. You just went to Iceland and back.
No. I came from the West Indies, Barbados to England, to London. Yeah, I flew on it, and it was amazing. Amazing.
You just raised something in my own mind, and that's these folk who take these round trips on Concorde. It costs them a couple of grand sometimes, and they just go up in a big circle and come back down again.
No. I came for a week. I came to England for a week.
Yeah.
So no, it was a trip. But no, it was I was proud. I can tell you, there's very few things these days that being English makes you proud. I was very, very proud of Concorde. I think it's a magnificent achievement, and I think that politician, Mr. Cable, said something about it was to our detriment that we didn't follow France's lead. Why are they always knocking us? You know, I always get the impression that our politicians think that we are just the lowest of the low or something, that we need browbeating or prodding into doing what we're told.
Pauline in Caterham, thank you very much indeed for your call. Pauline in Caterham, they're singing the praises of England's great technological triumph, Concorde. I'm Tommy Boyd in for Mike Dickin. It's 10:30. Let's get the news. On 10:89 and 10:53 a.m. Tommy Boyd on TalkSport. Tommy Boyd in for Mike Dickin, working our way through the ongoing news stories of the morning and the day. The number is 08700 40 50 60, and you're always more than welcome to make your contribution. Now, after two failures, rescuers are at the moment launching a third attempt to reach the 116 sailors trapped in that Russian nuclear submarine on the bed of the Barents Sea. It was bad weather on the surface and poor visibility at depth, which frustrated the two earlier attempts to dock a rescue capsule with the stricken submarine. Meanwhile, with the crew thought to have perhaps just 48 hours of oxygen left, Russian Navy officials are due to meet their NATO counterparts in Brussels again today to consider accepting Western help. Well, here with expert information and opinion on this, Commander Jeff Tall joins us. He's former commander of the nuclear-powered submarines HMS Churchill and HMS Repulse, and is currently the director of the Royal Navy Submarine Museum in Gosport. Good morning.
Good morning, Tommy.
We've seen plenty of pictures of this particular submarine, on the outside at least, but obviously we haven't got any pictures of it on the inside because the Russians wouldn't release that. But what are conditions like in there? Just how hospitable would it be at the best of times?
Well, under normal circumstances, with the reactors running, providing steam for all the hotel services, life is reasonably comfortable these days. Down below. Of course, a consequence of the accident meant that the reactors were shut down, which means they revert then to the battery powering all the hotel services. And of course, conservation of the battery will be a major consideration by the survivors. So that implies no cooking, no heating, no ventilation, no domestic facilities at all. And they've been there almost 5 days. So you can imagine that circumstances for those survivors are grim in the extreme.
One would imagine that the procedures which have been rehearsed with sailors for escaping from either a ship or a submarine are reasonably thorough and rigorous. But one would also imagine that since it is a machine which has been built potentially for combat, so much of its resources will have been given over for efficient combat, that presumably there will be very little space for technology aboard this ship to enable the sailors to escape in such an event as this. So in a sense, when the lid is sealed, they are they not, in a sort of a coffin?
I think the word entombed and your allusion to a coffin, I think, are perfectly appropriate for the current circumstance. In the Royal Navy, we do go for a belt and braces approach to getting out of a stricken submarine, in as much as we do have an escape facility. In other words, it's a self-help facility. You climb into an immersion suit, climb into an escape tower equalize the pressure, and you then shoot to the surface in your immersion suit, which is designed to sustain you from hypothermia and exposure and so on until you're picked up. So we don't think that technology is actually fitted in the Russian Navy. What they rely on is the alternative method of rescue, and this is what we're seeing happening at the moment, obviously without much success. And I think it's the lack of the backup of the escape facility that really is causing the problem here.
Can I ask whether, since there are people in NATO, people in NATO countries here, who suspect that the Russians would have preferred to have kept this entire event from the rest of the world, has there ever been an occasion like this which has struck the British Navy, which has been kept from the world, to your knowledge? And would you tell us now if you knew?
Well, I would tell you if I knew, and I can say that yes, we've had our disasters. We've had our disasters in peacetime. The worst disaster before us occurred in 1939 when HMS Thetis sank in Liverpool Bay, and for a couple of days the stern of that submarine was actually sticking out of the water. Since the war, we've lost HMS Truculent. She was run down in the Thames and men escaped after that, but they went too early and died from exposure, which introduced the immersion suit concept. We lost HMS Affray with all hands, and we still don't know exactly what happened there, and that happened in 1951. And then in 1955, a torpedo exploded in a torpedo tube in HMS Sidon, and blew the front of the submarine off with, once again, loss of life. So accidents do happen, and the margin for this kind of mishap, of course, in a submarine are much less than in a surface ship.
Now, we're being told that Russian Navy officials are meeting their NATO counterparts in Brussels today to talk about some sort of cooperative rescue mission. How likely is it, for example, that the two sets of technologies will be compatible?
Well, we're very confident that, in fact, this rescue vessel that we have is compatible. And the big advantage over a submersible, which is maneuverable, as compared to the Bell, which they're attempting at the moment, is the submersible's flexibility. With the Bell, they're trying in very rough surface conditions to lower this rescue craft down onto an upper hatch, only 3 feet in diameter. So it's a bit needle in the haystack-ish, if you know what I mean. Time is getting extremely short now, and I really hope that there is some movement today to make this last-ditch effort.
Commander Toole, thanks very much. Whereabouts is the submarine museum in Gosport exactly?
We're down on the waterfront, on the shore of Portsmouth Harbour, and we're next door to the Royal Hospital in Haslar.
Okay, thanks for talking. 08700 40 50 60 is the number. In a moment, we'll be talking about the lottery with Professor Roger Scruton. He is almost certainly Britain's best-known philosopher, and he's way off the fence when it comes to the lottery. You may say he's way off the beam. He says the time has come to scrap it.
TalkSport.
They're deciding soon, aren't they, who gets to run the next lottery. Camelot, of course, came in so much criticism during their tenure, and it looks as though it's the end of this week, I'm told. Thank you. Yes, team tell me it's the end of this week. Will Camelot get another crack at it, or Branson, or another outfit? Well, let's talk to a man who says nobody should get a crack at it at all. The time has come to scrap the thing. And he's not just anybody, it's Professor Roger Scruton. Now, many will tell you that he is Britain's best-known philosopher, and he says that, I hope I'm quoting him accurately, that the lottery is responsible for making us all a greedier, lazier, and a politically correct, obsessed nation. He accuses the government of turning it into a political stealth tax to fool the electorate. And I think I'm right in saying, am I, Roger, that you think we should scrap the lottery altogether?
Well, I would like it if we did, though I recognise that we couldn't, because the government has such a stake in it now. I mean, it's already produced more than £3 billion in direct taxation, and of course, through the so-called Good Works Fund, it's able to offload a lot of its own responsibilities onto the lottery. So I suspect it's here to stay.
But all that good work, all that charitable work, all those fine cultural institutions that surely you support, which have been aided by the lottery, and after all, it's not really a tax, is it? Because I can't think of many voluntary taxes that the government exploits.
Well, put it this way. I mean, the people who are distributing the money to the good causes are people who none of us have actually had a chance to elect. They're appointed in an obscure way that very few of us know anything about. They often have a political agenda. Let's take the example of Leeds, for example, where the Leeds Wounded Warriors Welfare Committee applied for lottery money to buy themselves a new coach. These are decent old boys who'd fought for their country and been wounded and so on. They were turned down, and money was given instead to a society for giving advice to male prostitutes. Because that was a politically correct cause. Male prostitutes are much more higher up on the agenda of the kind of people who run the lottery than the old soldiers who'd fought for their country. And that's just one example of the kind of thing which I think is very maddening for ordinary people to be confronted with. This money is taken without their consent and distributed by people whom they have no business, no ability to elect, and who have an agenda of their own. I can't see this is a healthy thing for any society.
Well, the consent lies in whether or not you buy a ticket, and obviously you don't, and nor do I. But nevertheless, I don't see any harm in it, nor do I see it turning the nation into with ordinary people you mentioned, into a greedier, lazier bunch. But you do.
I think I take the old-fashioned view about gambling that it's okay in small doses, but when it becomes an addiction and all your hopes are pinned on it, you are in effect turning your character in a new direction. You're living on the fantasy that gold will be rained upon you from the skies, as in a fairy story, instead of the reality, which is that you will never really have any chance of being wealthier if you don't work.
Roger, nobody pins all their hopes on the lottery.
Well, don't they?
No, mate. I'm telling you, nobody pins all their hopes on the lottery. People buy it just to jazz up the middle of the week and the end of the week. That's all.
Do you think so? The amount of time devoted to thinking about it, talking about it, looking at it on the television and so on, it's gradually colonising people's emotions.
No, that's called fun. Look, philosophers have fun and ordinary people have fun. You have fun. What do you do as a diversion? You know, Bertrand Russell used to read cheap whodunit novels and,
of course, this is
Camus kept goal, you know.
This is all true. And every now and then a little bet on the races is perfectly okay. But the question is, well, if it becomes a daily, weekly diet of false expectations, can we not see something wrong with this? Something wrong as well when there's so much money being, as it were, unowned money slopping around the system, being spent on causes that ordinary people wouldn't approve of. I can't see that's a healthy thing.
Turning us into a greedier, lazier, and do you also have a concern about political correctness?
Yes, I do, yes.
Go on.
Because I think political correctness is a kind of value system for bureaucrats, which has no relation to the values whereby ordinary people live.
Professor Roger Scruton, thank you very much indeed for laying out your views on the lottery. What do you say? 08700 40 50 60. I've never played the lottery and I never will. Now that's become a thing of mine. I think it's almost as obsessive for me now and other people who've never played the lottery never to play the lottery, just as it is obsessive now for people who have ever bought a lottery ticket to always buy a lottery ticket just in case this is the week. And I think the most dangerous obsession that can exist in the lottery is choosing the same numbers week after week, because you will have said to yourself, won't you, what if next week I don't do those numbers and you've been doing them for X weeks, months or years and those numbers come up. 08700 40 50 60.
Tomorrow afternoon from 1 on TalkSport.
Tommy Boyd from Mike Dickin. It's the Mike Dickin Show. He's on holiday between 10 and 12, looking at what's going on in the world and at home and getting your thoughts and expert opinion on those things. Talking about Concord, emails come in from Steve Ellaby, who lives in Salford, and it's this. Listening to your show, I find it interesting that French Concord used Goodyear tyres. I'm just back from the States, where Goodyear tyres have made the unprecedented step of recalling 20 million defective tyres as they are causing smashes all over the States. Has the possibility of a connection here been explored? No, but it should be. And I often think that members of the public who have information like this should really get onto the so-called experts who can't know everything. And if you're still listening, Steve, I urge you to send a duplicate of this email to the CAA. 08700 40 50 60, talking about Concord, and also talking about the lottery. Take your calls there in just a second. Professor Roger Scruton saying the time has come to scrap it for a whole gamut of reasons. And I'm also asking the question, having not seen the programme but being interested in a sports bet and reading that William Hill are offering 3-1 that on Big Brother, the TV show, which has won the ratings battle through the summer, for better or for worse, is offering 3-1 that one of the contestants is a plant being put there by the organisers to make the show as interesting as possible, and 100-1 that the whole thing's fake. But I haven't seen it. So who is this guy who might be a plant? And is he? 08700 40 50 60. Billy's mobile in Gretna Green. Billy.
Hiya.
Hey.
I've got two questions, right? One is, why not do like a referendum each week on the, who decides on what charity it should go to or what causes it should go to, like an addition on the actual ticket itself. That way, you might get a bit more pleased about it,
Okay.
And two, who is he to decide whether it should be scrapped or not? I don't necessarily agree with what you said. I think it's escapism, a lot of people dream of winning it, it like helps them out to get through the week,
Yeah, do you?
I do it, myself.
Yeah, but do you dream of it through the week?
Oh, of course.
Do you?
Yeah, well, everyone does, doesn't it?
No, I don't, you see. I mean, because I know I'm not going to win it, and you're not going to win it.
You don't know that, though,
You ain't going to win it.
You don't know that?
You ain't going to win it.
Oh, you know, do you?
No, I'm pretty good on these maths, you ain't going to win it.
Well, maths is maths, right? It's chance.
No, I'm a bettor, you see. You're a gambler. No, you're not. You're a punter.
Oh, whatever. But believe you me, right? If I win it, I'll phone you and tell you.
Oh, you do that.
I do that.
I might be in Barbados as well.
Yeah?
Yeah, but I got there on my own hard work. See ya.
Yeah, well, so will I.
Yeah, fair enough. See you, Billy.
Ta-da.
08700 40 50 60. James is in Hornsey. James, you're on TalkSport. Good morning.
Morning to you, Tommy. I'd like to tell you why I have doubts about the lottery. Now, anybody who's got kids will tell you that all the kids want to take part. It's on Saturday night and Wednesday night, I think, isn't it? And if they haven't got a ticket, they don't understand how much, how hard it is to get money. So if they haven't taken part, they feel left out. And I stood in a shop behind a young girl. She's a single mum, living on benefit, not very much money, and she was getting the Saturday night tea for the kids. Fish fingers, baked beans and a chocolate cake. And then she realised she hadn't got quite enough money for the lottery ticket, so she put the cake back. And that does make me wonder.
Well, I think it's absolutely very sound, really. I'd sooner, if I had to choose between buying a lottery ticket or feeding my children cake, I'd certainly buy a lottery ticket. See what I'm saying? And I can't hear anything in a basket that would have any great nutritional value.
Irrespective, it seems a funny state of mind that it's more important to spend £1 on the lottery than it is to give the kids something to eat.
Yeah, I can hear that.
But I can understand her point of view that if she went home without the cake, it's not too much of a problem. If she goes home without the lottery ticket, the kids say, why haven't you bought a lottery ticket, Mum?
Yeah. Well, you moved into...
They want to take part.
Yeah. You've taken the conversation into an interesting and adjacent area, and that is the pressure that peers and other members of the family, but in particular children, can put on parents to get things.
That's right.
What age were the children, do you suppose?
If I remember rightly, at that time she had a couple. I think they were 5 and 7, which is just at that age when, you really do come under pressure.
Yeah, that's a bit early.
Also, the age you can't explain to them why they can't have things.
Yeah.
Just in a very sad story.
Yeah, James, I'm grateful for your call. And it's interesting because one of the things we were talking about before we came on air as something that you might find interesting and worth reacting to is the identification of a new group of youngsters. We've got juniors and primaries and infants and youths and teenagers and post-adolescents and so forth. But there is now a group which is just being talked about today, and they are called the tweenagers because with puberty happening earlier now than it ever has, and when I trained as a teacher I was taught that puberty was happening on average 6 months earlier every 10 years. Okay, and I was taught that 30 years ago, so it's now happening 18 months earlier than it was 30 years ago. And that had been going on for some 20, 30 years. The argument there is that cultural or is that nutritional? We were taught it was nutritional, but I'm not convinced. What it means is that you're getting a bunch of people who are not teenagers, but who are teenagers in as much as they've gone through puberty. And it's certainly common nowadays for 10 and 11-year-olds to begin to walk like adults, talk like adults, and have quite a lot of the equipment that adults have. So if you're home from school, you'll be able to point us out a few things on this one. You know, at what age do you become a nearly adult? Used to be a teenager, sort of 13, 14, but nowadays it seems as though it could be 10, and in the case of some people, possibly even younger. Phone lines are open. I'm Tommy Boyd, in for Mike Dickin. It's 08700 40 50 60, or you can email us through our website, which is talksport.net. You click on the button that says email the show.
On 1089 and 1053 AM, Tommy Boyd on TalkSport.
Cloning up in a moment. Hi, I'm Tommy Boyd. Mike Dickin back 10 days or so. You're tuned to TalkSport. Been talking about the lottery over the last half hour or so with... they're going to announce who's going to be running the lottery for the next, I think it's 5 years, at the end of this week. And we've had Britain's leading philosopher on saying that the time has come to scrap it. So what do you say? There's a phone vote we'll run. OK, if you want the lottery scrapped, if you say the time has come to scrap the lottery, 09009 111 300. If no, the lottery should stay, 09009 111 400. I'll repeat the numbers again in just a second. And I'm predicting a 70% vote in favour of scrapping the lottery, just out of interest. What would you say? See, because you can make anything as interesting as you like by going a bit further. And that's my guess. I might be right, might be wrong. What do you think? Yes, time's come to scrap the lottery, 09009 111 300. If no, the lottery should stay. Same number, 09009 111, but the last three digits, 400. Our switchboard number is 08700 40 50 60. Jeff calls. He's mobile in Oxford. Morning, Jeff.
Morning, Tommy. First time I've ever spoke to you, actually. What it is, I think the lottery should be scrapped completely, and also I think racing, if not scrapped, should be radically reduced. The last call that was on before the news actually basically confirmed one of the things that I'm always saying, that we're actually breeding a nation of gamblers, and it's such a dangerous addiction. It's far worse than drugs and things like that, because you can actually see the signs with the drugs. I mean, gambling just totally ruins lives, causes deaths at least every day. People kill themselves due to their problems, and it just totally ruins whole families. And it actually starts from when you're a child, this want for the big win, and the chances of it coming very, very, very slow. And if you do get the big win, you want a bigger win, because that's just the addiction of gambling.
That's the fun of it.
Pardon?
I think you're overstating the case somewhat enormously, somewhat ludicrously, in actual fact, to suggest that it's a daily life-threatening illness. It isn't.
Tommy, let me tell you, it is.
No, let me tell you. No, steady. Let me tell you, it isn't. Unless, of course, you've got some facts to back up your claim, and I bet you haven't.
Well, I bet you. I mean.
Sorry, you just said you bet me. Sorry, you just said you bet. No, sorry, you just said you bet me. I got you.
I'm a compulsive gambler. That's why. So I know what it's like, and I've tried to stop.
Then why did you bet? Why did you agree to bet me then?
Because that's the addiction in it. It just comes so natural.
No, you see, I've got to the heart of this one easily enough. You've got a problem.
Yes, I have got a problem.
You've got a problem, if I may, no, excuse me, your problem is not with gambling. That is the symptom, but that is not the illness.
Well, what's the illness then?
Well, that's what we'd have to find out, but I haven't got time.
Well, it's all down to the gambling.
3 minutes a call. It might take 3 years to analyse you to find out what your compulsion is.
You certainly wouldn't get any help from the government or that, because they wouldn't want it to stop, because they make too much money.
You start with yourself. You've got to go away and work out what it is that keeps making you do something that you pretend you don't want to do. But you obviously do want to do it because you do it.
If I was a drug addict, right, I would get help from the government. I would get help from your local councils.
We're not put on this earth to get help from governments. We're put on.
But what I'm saying
Do I get to finish a sentence with you? You're also a compulsive yakker. Let's have a conversation rather than a monologue. Let's have a conversation.
But what I'm saying is...
No, you're not.
There's no help.
No, you're not. You're having Look, you can either have a conversation or not at all.
It's not a...
No, you don't get this, do you?
I'm stating a fact that
no, you're not stating a fact.
Illness.
No, you're off. I can't be doing because you've got to have a conversation rather than talk absolute nonsense. That's called logorrhea. And that is, quite possibly one manifestation of a compulsive disorder which could sit side by side with gambling compulsion. You see, my view is that George Best is not addicted to alcohol. He's addicted to being George Best. And where is he most George Best? He is most George Best when he walks into a pub or a nightclub. That's where he's celebrated as being George Best, not down Waitrose, otherwise he'd be addicted to shopping. But the place where he is most likely to be celebrated as George Best is in the pub with a drink in his hand. That's what he's searching for. The only place where he can go and recover past glories is to the pub, and that's why he drinks, and that's what's got to be attacked. And that's what Jeff there has got to start thinking about, if you want my opinion. You probably don't, but you got it. Mike calls from Stoke. You're on TalkSport, Mike. Good morning.
Hello, Tom.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the lottery in principle, but I am opposed to the distribution of the prize money. I think, for instance, to get 5 numbers, you're talking 2 odds of 55,491 to 1, and yet you'd be lucky winning £1,000 in reality, So, for me, I'd make the jackpot say a maximum of 3 million and share out the rest of it among the other prizes, to make it a bit more fair.
Mm-hmm. Okay, of course that wouldn't get the headlines, would it? Because what we want to see on the what we want to see photographs of is
3 million would do for me.
Some guy who looks as though he doesn't deserve it, sitting on a pretty woman's knee. That's what gets the publicity. That's what drives up sales of tickets.
I know people go for the big number, but I think 3 million would do for most people. I just feel it's not fair.
Well, I'm going to ask you an interesting question.
Yep.
What would be the smallest amount of money that you could take tax-free, okay, and then pack everything in and live reasonably okay, live acceptably?
How much amount of money, me personally?
Yeah, I mean,
I'd say about 250 grand.
That's mine. That's the sum. That's all a person needs, isn't it?
I would say so, yeah.
And in this day and age, what would that buy you? A very, very third-rate left back from the Division 3.
I'm not interested in third-rate left backs. I do a nice pad, a nice motor, and a reasonably comfortable way of life.
And be able to live off the interest, but you don't want a lot. Yeah, Mike, good for you.
There's a lady who won, I think it was, I don't know how many million, but she said she got fed up and there's no structure to her life, and she ended up going back to a 12,000 a year job. Work ethic people like me are just mind-boggled by that kind of money.
Thanks for your call. 08700 40 50 60. Talking about the lottery, we'll be talking about the issue of cloning next. When does human life begin? It's a question. There aren't many, but it's a question nobody can answer. That's the crux of this problem. We can all say to within usually a couple of minutes when death occurs. There's a tiny window in almost all cases of our expiry, something we all have to look forward to when death has occurred. 1 minute you're alive, literally, and the next minute you are dead. Okay, but does the same thing happen when you're talking about becoming a human being, when you're talking about becoming alive? Deserving consideration because in whatever state you are, you might feel pain. You might have some rights. When does that happen? There are a number of obscure tribes, one in South America, I think they're called the Quechuans, and I think also in Africa, are they called the Kikuyu? I can't remember, who date their birthday from the moment of conception. And that seems to me to be, a wise way of looking at it, and an extra celebration for that night out on the tiles. 08700 40 50 60 to Nigel, who's our next caller in Temple Fortune. Nigel.
Hello, Tommy. I think the lottery should stay. I think that it gives opportunity to people to win money, to have a little bit of fun, but the most important aspect of the lottery is that it's there to provide money for certain causes. Now, you had a chap on earlier on, was it your academic, saying that it didn't provide a cause in Leeds for some old soldiers, but it provided a cause for male prostitutes, I think, some form of program for those people. I think what has to be examined is the way lottery money is distributed, and the people who choose to distribute it should themselves be perhaps given greater guidelines. I think the other thing about the lottery is it mustn't be a source of funding services that could be funded by direct taxation. And what I mean by that is, for instance, the National Health Service or education. I think that should be funded by direct taxation.
Nigel, thank you for your thoughts. The lottery has done more harm than good. We'd be better off scrapping it. Has the time come to do away with the lottery? If your vote is yes, call 09009 111 300. If your vote is no, let's keep the lottery. It's 09009 111 400. I'm guessing a vote of in the region of 70% saying yes, saying no, let's keep the lottery. But I've got it wrong. Vote line is currently running 58% yes and 42% no. Let's get the travel now, shall we? Karen Mercer.
On 1089 and 1053 AM, Tommy Boyd on TalkSport.
British scientists are learning today whether they will be allowed to clone human embryos for medical research. An advisory group set up to examine the issue and headed by the Chief Medical Officer, Professor Liam Donaldson, is publishing its conclusions today. Paul Tully joins, General Secretary of the Society of Unborn Children. Paul, morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Would you just like to state your case in words of one syllable and 3 sentences on the issue of human cloning?
Yes, we feel that it is objectionable, that it's ethically objectionable that human beings should be created through these techniques where the child being created or embryo being created is a carbon copy of somebody else. This is an affront to the dignity of the human person, and it means that individual being created is likely to be regarded as an inferior to others and maltreated.
And what are you hoping the advisory group will be saying today?
Well, we've already seen the basic outline of the recommendations they'll be putting forward, and while they are saying that they don't think that cloned embryos should be allowed to develop, to be born, they are saying that scientists should be given the go-ahead to create them on the pretext of trying to look for cures for diseases.
The issue is very multi-layered, but for many people it seems to boil down to the question of when does human life begin in an unborn human being? When do you believe that happens?
Well, that really is a matter for scientific investigation. And the evidence that we must look at here is when a new organism comes into being, which is self-organizing, which is self-sustaining, and so on. And that clearly is for most of us, the point of conception, when sperm and ovum meet and unite, a new genetic code is established with the DNA defining a particular new individual. That, in biological terms, is when human life begins. And that is when I believe we should begin our respect for the rights of the new human life.
Presumably supporters of this research would say to you that when a human patient's cell is planted into an egg, although what is called an embryo is allowed to flourish for, I believe it's 6 days before it's dismantled, it's not actually a conception.
Well, in the recommendations that it puts forward, the Donaldson report actually refers to embryos created through cloning as embryos, even though the law that we have, the Embryology Act that we have, doesn't refer to such to such beings as embryos. That law is only framed in terms of embryos created through the process of conception with sperm and ovum. So the legal situation regarding cloning is very unclear at the moment. There is no law that clearly outlaws cloning, but the recommendations that are being put forward are trying to fudge the issue there, and they're trying to suggest that to clone a baby and bring a baby to birth is illegal at present. Well, that's not clear at all. Whereas they're saying that they do want legal changes to enable scientists to create embryos who would simply be guinea pigs, cloned embryos who would be used as a source of tissue for research or treating others.
Okay, Paul Tully, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
General Secretary of the Society of unborn children. What do we say? 08700 40 50 60. It does seem to me that unless we already have a campaign as part of our portfolio of opinions, we have to say we don't know enough to have a firm opinion. We have to say that there are so many questions that we do need to have answered about cloning before we can decide for ourselves one way or another whether we think that it is something that should be progressed. My own feeling is that it seems to me that it is progressing as carefully as it possibly could, with so many controls, mechanisms being put in place by governments, both nationally and internationally, and a lot of this work is being done, I understand, in Switzerland and abroad, as well as in this country. So many controls are being put in place. There are so many guidelines and so many very clear don'ts about what scientists are allowed to do in laboratories. There's an absolute don't on cloning a human being. For example, that what progress is being made seems to me to be happening sensibly, and we have to support anything that is going to reduce human suffering, and as far as we know, that is the sole purpose of it. And ideas of creating robot armies or armies of robot workers, soldiers or whatever, that belongs fairly and squarely in the province of nonsensical science fiction, or fun science fiction, but nonsensical science fiction, and it will be no nearer to what life will actually be like when cloning is a useful facility for all of us than the relationship between 1984 in the book and 1984 in reality, because they were miles apart, weren't they? So, we shouldn't surely worry too much, unless, of course, we need to climb onto one of the books of dogma that some people are happy to spend all their life climbing upon and telling us things from, the books we mean. But it's always interesting to hear the views and the arguments. 08700 40 50 60. Brian is on the line from Bognor Regis. Brian, welcome to TalkSport.
Hi, Tony. Nice to see you back in the morning slot again for a short space of time. You were asking when life starts and when life stops. Life starts surely when the heart starts to beat, and obviously the reverse from when it stops. Isn't that reasonable?
No.
Why is that?
Well, because when your heart stops, you don't die straight away. I mean, to be casualty about it. I mean, I've seen enough episodes of Casualty to believe that is the case. Death occurs with brain death.
Yeah.
Yeah, always.
And what causes brain death?
That isn't the point. The point is that if you're saying that the triggering into activity of one organ or another represents the end of life, and therefore it represents the beginning of life.
You've lost me.
Yeah, I have. You see, it's easy to look at the heart, isn't it? Because it goes boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, but
right.
Surely that...
Or not, as the case may be.
Surely that is, what do you call a baby in the womb? A fetus? Isn't that the case when the heart starts to beat? Although the mother is supplying blood, that blood is then being pumped around to that small body.
No, we've moved on. We've decided that brain death is when death occurs, and therefore brain life, in your argument, in your world, is where life occurs. But you see, your problem is it's hard to measure when a brain starts to work.
Yeah, but I come back to the point. The only reason you get brain death is the heart stops pumping blood to it.
No, there are many reasons why brains stop, not necessarily because of heart. But that's another matter. In any case, are you on firm medical ground when you say that a heart suddenly starts beating? I don't know. Does a heart suddenly start beating in a fetus?
Well, it must do, mustn't it?
No, definitely not. No, there's no must do in nature. No. That means you don't know, do you?
It grows to a certain size.
And then suddenly kicks into life?
And then suddenly kicks in.
Nah, I don't believe that. And you don't know either, do we? So there's two idiots here talking about something we know nothing about.
Well, perhaps we ought to have... yes, providing strict controls are kept on it, yes, but there's always going to be some dickhead around the world going to take it a stage further, and there's danger.
Thank you, Brian, in Bognor Regis. 08700 40 50 60. Maybe life begins before the moment of conception, because sperms are alive if you use a classic definition of life, which is that death can occur. Sperm can die, and therefore they are alive. They may have no more rights than a carrot, or do they? I mean, they can get about. And the distinction between an animal and a plant is that an animal can get about. So sperms are animals, or are they? No, they're human. Well, they're nearly human. Do they have rights? If they have rights, were Monty Python right? And what does that mean for everybody else's Friday and Saturday night activity? 08700 40 50 60. It's complicated being a human being, isn't it? Andre calls from Swansea on cloning. Andre, you're on TalkSport. Good morning.
Good morning. I think it's absolutely marvellous, this cloning business, because shortly I'll be going on dialysis, and I've seen the people up there on the machines and everything, and if anything, I'd love to have a new kidney, pigs, anything, just so I could get back to work. It's terrible. I think, it's wonderful for science to be able to do this. I think the quicker the better. So I'd love to get back to work, to be honest.
You know what? I read a short story which set me thinking a while ago, Andrew. By the way, I wish you well, and I hope you have all the best in your pursuit of health. And the short story was this: it was called "The Last Man Ever to Die," because that might happen.
Yes.
You see, and we wouldn't want to be him, would we?
No, we wouldn't.
No, we wouldn't, Andrew. You and me both on that one.
Did you see the people in the hospital? And when you're on dialysis, I know the people have told me, you're only allowed so much fluid to drink a day. If you like a glass of ice water, you can only have so many and that. I think it's terrible. I think
it isn't pleasant.
The quicker they do it, the better.
Hold on, it isn't pleasant, but it's a remarkable development in the treatment of this illness, isn't it?
Oh, yes, I agree.
Isn't it? Andre, thank you for your call, and as I said before, and would like to reiterate, wish you well with all of that. 08700 40 50 60, or you can email the show through our website. If you go to talksport.net, you want the button that says email the show. The vote line is currently running 63% yes, scrap the lottery, 37% no.
On 1089 and 10:53 a.m, Tommy Boyd on TalkSport.
In for Mike Dickin, and until 12 o'clock, continuing to pursue the news agenda, whatever that is. And there is an unusual attachment to the news agenda at the moment, and this has been happening for 2 or 3 weeks, and it's set to go on for a bit longer. And it is this wretched programme on Channel 4 called Big Brother. One of the bosses of this place was telling me that it was going to be a huge hit, and I remembered not contradicting him at the time, because you don't, but also because, well, I couldn't be sure, but I thought it was going to absolutely nosedive, and there it is. It turns out to have taken off enormously, and I was on holiday you've eventually bumped into a bunch of people who are connected with the media, and it's all they talked about, and it's all people talked about on the beach and in the bars, and this is in Spain, and I gather it's been even worse, unless, of course, you love it, in Britain. If you have been watching, I'd be very interested to get your steer on the question that seems to be emerging today at the moment, and that is whether one or other of the contestants is a plant. They're all supposed to be members of the public, have I got this right? Who have been stuck together in a sealed environment to do with each other as they will, but at the end of every week, I think it is, they have to vote and one of them leaves, and so it's all about cattiness and bitchiness and gangs and peer groups and who likes who and who dislikes who, and it's all been going very well, and it's been rating its bottom off, as they say, and the public, I'm being advised by my team, are the people who get the final say in this one via a telephone vote. Okay. However, the conversation now is turning to the notion that one of these people in this house might be a plant, might have been put there by the television company in order to ginger up the programme. And it's what television people have been known to do in the past, so are they doing it again? I know not. But the possibility that there is some fire beneath this smoke, for me, is firmed up by the fact that one of our major bookmakers has actually opened a book on it, and that's William Hill. And Graham Sharp joins us now on this crucial sporting event. Graham, hello.
Hi, Tommy. This is overshadowing the US Open, which gets underway in about 24 hours' time.
Oh, well, I have a word about that. But what sort of a turnover have you had on Big Brother?
Well, I think it's going to produce, by the time it's finished, the biggest betting turnover on a non-sporting TV programme since probably the days way back of Who Shot JR, which, as you may remember, took over the country big time about 20 years ago. I think that the audience in those days for that programme were about 24 million, let alone the 4 million that are watching apparently Big Brother. But certainly this has created an awful lot of betting interest.
Did it? When did it come to your attention that one of the contestants may be part of the programme?
We started to get one or two calls along those lines towards the end of last week, and we thought, well, it seems pretty unlikely because when all's said and done, this programme is not unique to this country. It's an idea that was brought in. I think the Dutch were the first to do it, and it's happening in America as well. So if the format has worked well over there, and there's been no suggestion that they've had to resort to planting contestants, it's fairly unlikely that it would happen here. But there have been a lot of leaks surrounding what's gone on with our particular programme, and when more than one or two people ask you about something that seems extremely unlikely, your instinct as a bookmaker is to say, well, just hold on for a while, don't go mad and offer odds of 1,000,000 to 1, because you never know, somebody may know something you don't. So we've offered 20 to 1, and we've taken a few bets.
Have you? And what do you, if I'm right in thinking you have a price, what is that price on the whole programme turning out to be a piece of theatre?
Well, that I think is completely unlikely. Again, we've taken one bet on that at 500 to 1, but I just can't see the point, because I think the programme, whatever 10 people you chose to put in there, would produce some sort of reaction, and I don't see how you could guarantee that by making the whole thing a put-up job you'd get any better a reaction. So I'm fairly confident that isn't the case.
And how would you arbitrate anyway? Because if I'm right in thinking the first ever British Fly on the Wall programme, which was about a family in Reading, it turned out that they'd had not coaching, but they'd been advised on how best to come across, and some of the arguments which developed had been helped along by the people making the programme. So, was that a fake? Nobody thought so.
As you know, nothing in the media is for real, is it? And anything that's presented to you as being a warts and all programme, if it's pre-recorded, you know full well it isn't. If it's being shown as live, then possibly, but even then, as you say beforehand, people have been nudged along and hyped up and pushed to exaggerate their traits, perhaps. So it would be difficult, but I rate that as along the line of the bets that we've got in our books, that it will eventually be proved that Neil Armstrong didn't in fact go anywhere near the moon.
Let's talk about men's betting, shall we? You mentioned the PGA. Are you top-heavy, enormously top-heavy with bets for Tiger? Because even the professionals are saying that he can't possibly lose it. Or is there sensible money going elsewhere, and if so, where?
Well, he's going off as the hottest favourite for any major. He's 6-4 chance with us, and even at that price, we've taken a bet from a punter in Aberdare down in Wales of £4,000 at 6-4. And you have to say, I was one of the ones who was scepticism personified before the Open, and said that a price there of 3 to 1 was nonsense. And look what he did there. If he produces that form, if he can have that consistency, then he will walk away with it, I'm sure. Ernie Els is 10 to 1 second favourite. He's also 10 to 1 to finish second, to give himself a complete sequence of second in all the majors. But the one they've gone for this time, I think, is lefty Phil Mickelson, the left-handed player. One of the only major players left to win a major. He's 14 to 1 third favourite, and our own Colin Montgomery has a 25 to 1 chance. He seems to have blown his own chances before he's gone there. Whereas Lee Westwood, who's going there in very good form, but then he did for the British Open, is a 22 to 1 chance. And we've just taken a bet of a grand each way on Vijay Singh, who of course was a major winner last season.
Graham, thank you. Keep sending Racing Post those faxes.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Graham Sharp there of William Hill. They're going 20 to 1 that there's a plant. One of the contestants who's still left in the house in Big Brother has been put there by the television company that's making the programme. What do you think? You've watched. The programme is all about human nature and our judgments about people and what people are really like and what they're up to and what they're about. And to a certain extent, it would almost be utterly valid of the programme makers to do something like that and test us. Test you watching the programme. Test your ability to understand people. I'm not going to get involved in the programme. I'm not interested. I like to think it's beneath me. But, the idea of a programme about the human condition as it really is revelatory and fascinating. And maybe I'll climb aboard it the second time. But the acid question remains. Do you think there's a plant there? Have you spotted one of these people? I gather it's a guy called Nick. Is he in fact a television researcher? He's been on television before. Apparently, there are pictures of him appearing on Richard and Judy. Is it something? Richard and Judy, never heard of it. Wouldn't watch that either. But anyway, he is possibly a professional television contestant. You get those. Or is he somebody who is known to the people who made the programme because he's given good performances and because they said, well, look, you can come on, but you mustn't mention the fact that you are TV aspirational? Does that make him a plant? He would therefore, if he is TV aspirational, he'd be aware of what makes good television, which in the case of this programme is people conniving with and against each other. Does that invalidate the programme? I don't think so. But if you watched it, is he a plant? Tom calls from Attleborough. Tom, welcome to Talk Sport. Is he a plant?
Hi, Tommy. I think that the reason that people think he's a plant is because he's in a different league. All the other contestants on the show, they're not really with it. Intelligence-wise, he's a bit clever. And so everyone automatically assumes he's a plant because he knows how to play the game.
Mm-hmm. Now, I gather there's been some speculation in one of the newspapers that he smuggled a mobile phone in there. What's your take on that?
I don't know. Well, he could have smuggled one in, but I think I can pledge your wife.
Thank you very much indeed. No idea what that was all about. No, don't dump it. I don't give a hoot. So shall we dump it? I don't give a hoot. I don't want to dignify some of the nonsense that people phone in programmes with by pretending that it bothers me in the slightest. Is that all right? Is that policy? Can I have that policy? That's fine. It doesn't bother me or my wife, and it doesn't bother the station. That's cool. That's cool. See, it doesn't bother me. I'm talking to my team here. We're having a meeting on air. I like it. John calls from Hove. John, you're on Talk Sport. Morning.
Hello, Tommy.
Hi.
Glad to hear you on form this morning. It's quite thought-provoking for those of us that do actually watch the show to think that he may be a plant. And the more we talk about it, the more we may think, he may well be. If we take, for example, that he's not, the producers or Channel 4 who show the programme, they're actually creating a bit of a monster. He's possibly the most hated man in the country at the moment. I know you don't know what he's been up to, but he's said some fairly libelous things to do with George Michael. He lies. He talks about people behind their backs. And the knock-on effect that's going to have for him when he comes out of that house, where the previous three have been cheered and clapped, the effect that's going to have on him when he comes out of the house and for the rest, or for the next few years anyway, could be quite devastating for him.
How much of a boost has he given the programme's watchability for you?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Really?
Yeah, everybody wants to see him voted out, but he hasn't actually had a vote yet. People watch the show to see who he's going to stab in the back next.
How does he do this backstabbing? By being charming to certain contestants' faces, and then when they're out of the room, stirring up opposition to that person?
For example, last night they had to vote every contestant votes for two people to leave the house. He voted for a person called Craig. Later on that evening, he's sitting there talking to Craig, talking to him about how he wants two other people to leave the house, when a few hours previously he's actually voted for him to leave. He wants him out of the house. And he's done this many times. And the woman that left last week, you should have seen her face when she realised what this Nicholas had been up to behind her back. She was just absolutely...
Do they come out... Do we get to meet them then after they've been ejected from the house?
Yeah, they come out Friday evenings and they meet Davina McCall live on air, and they talk to her, and then they show her or him, whoever's left the house, exactly what's been going on the previous week and who's voted for them to leave and what they've been saying about them.
Now, did they have that procedure in mind when they set the programme up? In other words, before it even launched, that the most interesting feature of it would be this sort of machination that was going on between contestants?
Yes, I believe so, yes. They have a problem now where as much as the fewer the contestants there are, the worst contestants or the most annoying contestants are leaving. So now they have to vote for two people. So maybe they have to put two names forward. So they're necessarily not voting for the two worst people because they have to put two names forward. But it's very interesting to think that this Nick hasn't actually got a vote from any of the other contestants. And I find that hard to believe because I know that he's cheesed quite a few of them off.
Well, you're moving into another accusation now, which is that there's been a little bit of, not vote tampering, what should we say, just a theatrical adjustment of the votes. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they show us on TV who the contestants are voted for. So unless the whole thing is a setup and they're actually telling the contestants who to vote for, then no, I can't see that.
So the contestants actually say to camera who they want thrown out?
Yeah, they go into a little booth, private booth, and they say to the camera, "I want such and such, so and so and so and so to be my nominations to leave the house."
John, stay with us. We're going to the travel with Karen Mercer in just a second, but I don't know whether I can ask Karen whether she's... because I'm sure Karen watches Big Brother. Do you, Karen?
You are so wrong. I have to get up so early to do this shift that I just can't possibly watch TV on at that time of night.
Okay, well...
I'm so boring, aren't I?
No, darling. Otherwise I wouldn't ask you questions like this, but get on with the traffic.
All right, it's the thing I'm best at.
08700 40 50 60 is the number, or you can email us by going to our website, which is talksport.net, and we're talking about Big Brother. We've heard from Graham Sharp of Hills, the bookmakers, who are offering 20 to 1 that one of the contestants is a fraud, and John from Hove is on the line. John, have you watched the programme from day one?
Yeah, I've seen most of the episodes.
Right. Does it deserve the attention and the press attention and the enormous rating success that it's secured?
Yes, it's addictive.
Really?
Yeah, once you start watching it, you're actually peeking into people's lives. I find it amazing that the way they act, they don't seem to realise that every word they say, every movement they make is either on camera or microphone. Because they just tend to forget that they're under the scrutiny.
Yeah, I caught 5 minutes of it a couple of days ago, and I saw that they had a kind of an infrared camera in the bedrooms.
Yes.
And everybody's getting into bed, therefore, with boxer shorts on.
Yes, I'm pleased in as much as they haven't shown any shower scenes, toilet scenes.
Well, I was going to ask what areas within the house do you think are actually off limits? Obviously, the lavatories.
There's cameras everywhere.
The bathrooms?
They don't show. I haven't seen any shots of people having showers or going to the toilet, but they have got cameras in there.
So they could have been filming that?
Well, I think they have cameras in there because if people want maybe going in to have a private word, then they haven't got anywhere to escape. So if they go into the toilet, although they won't necessarily show someone going to the toilet, if somebody goes into the toilet to have a private conversation,
we know
they'll
about
catch
that.
them in there.
I'm being told by a team here at TalkSport that they have shown people being showered, or at least going into the shower and getting out of it. Is that right?
They had a clay fight at the beginning.
Apparently there was a clay fight at the beginning. Is that right, John?
Didn't see that bit.
You missed the clay fight?
I missed the clay fight. Looking at the contestants, I'm not too unhappy.
Well, I know. There's that aspect of it, but we won't get onto the nightmarish picture across the front page of The Sun yesterday of one of the contestants, or at least I thought it looked airbrushed, but anyway. If you were running the programme then, and you'd achieved this success on Series 1, what do you think you'd have to add to Series 2 so that the programme continued its trajectory? If not sex?
I think...
Or love?
I think, well, they'd certainly have to keep the fact... If anybody was a plant in there, they'd have to keep that a secret, because it would just totally discredit the programme makers. I think the secret is in the people that they choose. They don't want 10 ordinary people to go into the house. They want 10 very different people. Maybe looking for people with devious minds.
But you say very different people. Have they not chosen people from that narrow band, which are considered to be Channel 4 viewers? I mean, what's the age of the oldest person amongst the group?
Late 20s.
And the youngest?
Early 30s. The youngest is early 20s, I would imagine. So they're all virtually the same age.
Semi-professional? Professional?
Yeah, they all seem fairly intelligent, professional people, yes. But I think the secret is definitely to have a clash in the house. You need people who are not going to get on, and the people that they've chosen for this series, I think they've got it virtually right.
Yeah.
And that's the secret.
John, thanks for your call. Let's bring in Neil, who calls from Central London on this one. Neil, you're on TalkSport.
Morning, Tommy. Good programme as per usual. What I want to say is, yes, it's a social experiment, Big Brother, but I think the social experiment is on us.
Go on.
Because I think that what they're trying to do is they're actually trying to get the amount of attention that they're actually getting from us.
Okay.
By putting all these different scenarios, everyday scenarios that I'm sure every one of us has been through, and actually, getting us to talk about it at length.
Yeah, but then you're saying that just about every television and radio programme, just about every media organ is engaging in the same social experiment. But you probably would say that, wouldn't you? I'm guessing.
To a certain extent, yes. But I think it's because of the people that are actually in the house. There's quite a cross section of people from around the country and from different lifestyles. So we're actually seeing, their different opinions on other people where a close-knit community is concerned.
Okay, that's the clever stuff out of the way. Let's get on with the basics, shall we? Is he a plant, this kid, Nick?
Of course he is.
Oh, he is he?
Of course he is.
You reckon, seriously?
He knows too much.
Well, get down to William Hill then and have a little bit. They're doing 20 to 1.
I might have to.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay, well, did you have this thought independently, or did you hear about the fact that he's possibly a plant and then look at him again differently?
My fiancé and I have sat and watched it religiously, and I'm sorry, he's too good. And he's not that clever.
Well, when you say too good at what? Too good at life, or too good at understanding the technology that's being used to create this thing?
He's too good at A, manipulating the technology, and B, manipulating the people who he thinks are intellectually not as clever as he is. He's good with words, Tommy. Like yourself.
Terrible thing, being good with words.
Isn't it just,
Yeah, and being manipulative people. I'm getting more information from the people who understand broadcast technology here at TalkSport. Maybe you can confirm this, Nick. Is it right that from time to time he knows how to, and does, disconnect his own microphone?
Yes, he does. He knows how to take the battery out of the microphone pack that they've all got.
But then again, you see, we've seen this.
Yes, we have.
So where do we get to? Knowing that A, he knows a bit more about broadcasting than everybody else, but that B, the makers of the programme are prepared to betray that.
Well, he also seems to know where every camera is, and he now has names for them.
Yeah, but I do that. In my building society, I know where the camera is. That doesn't make me a nut.
What, 29 of them?
Yeah, well, yeah, cameras look like cameras, don't they? They're not hidden, are they, or are they? Oh, they are. I'm getting big nods from next door. They're hidden.
Some of them are.
Really? And he knows where they are?
Yeah, you can see him taking sly glances towards camera when they're supposed to be actually hidden.
Yeah, but the only way around that would be to put a myriad dummy concealed cameras.
Yeah.
Because even a concealed camera has to have some sort of an aperture with, I presume, some kind of an opaque or glass lens front. So it's easy to spot. Look around the room you're in now, Neil. If there was a concealed camera in there, it wouldn't take you 3 minutes to spot it, surely.
Unless there was a two-way mirror in front of it, for example.
Okay. All right, well, you're good. I mean, are you going to take part in the next series? Your fiancé and you have discussed that, haven't you, on the sofa?
Tommy, I'm in the entertainment business. I'd be classed as a plant straight away.
Nice to talk to you. Thank you for your call.
You too. Thanks for that.
Very quickly, David in Hinckley. David, you're on TalkSport. Hiya.
Hello. No one's mentioned the obvious reason why the guy could be a plant.
Which is,
well, the object is to win £70,000 by being the last person left in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And presumably the public will have the final vote on that.
Mm-hmm.
The public will not vote for this guy because everyone hates him, therefore he cannot win. Therefore, if he's as intelligent as everyone thinks he is, he would know that. Therefore, he's got some other...
If I was as intelligent as you are, I'd grasp all those therefores. Are you saying he is a plant?
I'm saying that could... I'm saying I think he probably is. Because he what would be his agenda because he can't win?
Yes.
The only other agenda would be...
To make the programme a good programme?
Yeah, but if he's not a plant, I suppose the only other agenda he could have is to make himself very famous.
Okay. All right, David, thank you for your call. All right, I hereby issue a request to anybody listening to this programme who knows Nick. Everybody's been to school with everybody, okay? So there's somebody listening to this who has been to school with this guy, Nick. There's somebody listening to this who was at a wedding recently and he was there. There's somebody who has worked with him at some point in the past. There's somebody who may have been drinking down the wine bar with him just 10 weeks ago. If he was lining up to do a programme like this, he might not have been talking about it, but you will know Nick. And tomorrow, we want to hear from you. 08700 40 50 60. Let's talk to Darren now, who's called us from Burgess Hill. You're on TalkSport. Hi, Darren.
Hi, Tommy. Just wanted to say that I almost admire this guy, Nick, for what he's doing on the show. I mean, they all went into this as a competition to win £70,000. £70,000 is obviously a lot of money. And the way he's gone about it, he's just gone about it very cleverly to win the money. And it's just, I mean, as a caller just before just said, he's never going to win it because the public get the final vote, and the public, as the press are portraying him as a horrible piece of work sort of thing. But I just think the way he's gone about it, he almost deserves to win it, because at the end of the day, in a competition, you do what you do or what you can to win.
All right. Thanks for your call.
Cheers.
Cheers. Like I said, if you know the guy, Nick, if you've ever run into him, or you know anybody who knows him, we'd like to talk to you tomorrow on the programme. Coming up, Jeremy Nicholas is here with Time Smart, isn't it? How are you doing? Have you ever watched Big Brother?
Yes, I've seen every single one. Yeah, we don't miss it in our house.
No.
The last three in the house will be Darren, Nick, and Anna.
Is Nick a plant?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
No, I know quite a lot of people that work on the show, and he's definitely not a plant.
Just very quickly, our lottery vote line has gone 62% yes, scrap the lottery. There, that's raised a few eyebrows here. 38% no, thank you if you voted.
And the winner will be Anna. Now, coming up on my programme, if your business is owed money and they won't pay, the suppliers or the customers won't pay, what can you do about it? We'll be finding out. Also, the Law Society says solicitors have got a bit of a problem saying sorry when they get things wrong. We'll chat to them. And also, I'll be talking to the small firm from Northern Ireland who've beaten off competition to win a software deal with a global bank. But the news is next. 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 But the news is next.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. Comment too if you wish. Even slap your legs and make a purchase from Ann Summers. But don't do nothing.